What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode. My name's Jordan. This is Jeremy, and this is the Splash Pad Podcast. So I think episode 3 we had somebody comment. His name's Murph Dog.
Shout out Murph Dog.
He commented, could you guys talk about goal setting and how to make productive progress to that goal? So yeah, I think the bulk of this podcast we're going to talk about goal setting. I do want to talk about motivation a little bit, how to stay motivated. And personal stuff.
Yes. Before we dive right into that, in our last episode we talked about training gear and just our take on what we thought was the best training gear out there, and what you should and shouldn't have in your gear bag. We talked about goggles a little bit. I did talk about tier goggles and how I didn't think they were good, but they did come out with a brand new racing pair of goggles. So they're kind of like the Ultra Cobras that you have with the guided plastic parts on the side here, and so they look great. They look amazing. So if you guys like Tier and their stuff, check it out. They look like great goggles. But I just wanted to mention that because it's new and they look like, and they're cheaper too. So that may get people to get that over Arena. But yes, this week we want to talk about goal setting, and how to make productive progress towards those goals, and just what we think is the best way. By no means are we like experts on this by any means, but we've been swimming for a fairly long time, and we've made goals in our lives, and
I think we just have experience.
We have experience. I'm getting my master's in leadership, so that kind of helps with goal setting and just staying motivated and on task, and how to help others towards their goals, and yeah, I think we can help discuss on this topic, and help young swimmers especially, but really any age group of swimmers towards their goals. And it can be swimming related, it can be life related. Really, it could be for anything. And so we kind of want to keep this broad, just because goal setting is just an important thing that you have to do in life. And it's just it makes you a better person, and it helps you make those steps towards improving your lifestyle, or improving who you are, and those sort of things. So it's just important, and we want to keep it broad, but of course we want to talk about swimming related as well.
But also setting goals keeps you motivated as well. I think the biggest thing and why I set goals is to keep myself motivated. But
great thing about the great thing about swimming and making goals is that it's very easy to do, right? Because in in say like football, right? If you're a wide receiver and you're like, oh, I want to catch 8 touchdown passes, well, it could be pretty easy to do that, but at the same time, right? There's sometimes 3 other wide receiver options, right? And so everybody's trying to get a touchdown. You just want to be the best available option. So it's kind of, in other sports, it's kind of hard to, it's harder, not necessarily impossible. It's harder to kind of tell, if this person is a good player or a bad player, right? Because they can have 20 touchdown passes, but maybe they were just playing crap teams the entire time, right? And it's kind of hard to understand if they're a good or bad player or not, right? But in swimming, it's very easy, right? Whether you're swimming against a horrible team or you're swimming against whatever, we have times that you can look at and be like, okay, they swim this time, that means they gotta be good at swimming. And so in swimming, goals are fairly easy to make, right? So for goal times, at least, being like, hey, for my 100 freestyle, I want to be sub 50 by the end of this season, and that sort of stuff. And it's easy to measure that. While in other sports, it's like you got to put in mixtapes and show your skills and all that. But swimming, it's like, oh, this is my time. And it's like, oh, okay, that's good. That's a good time standard, and it meets whatever requirements on our team and blah blah blah.
I do have a question though. So you know how football players or basketball players they have to have a like a real tape or I don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
But when you're applying for colleges and coaches are looking at you, can you like send them like a video? Do you usually send them a video of you swimming or any of that?
Like when I'm recruiting athletes.
Well, just like any coach. Do you want me to
Yeah, I mean,
do anything?
it definitely helps. It wouldn't hurt, right? It doesn't hurt you to. I mean, unless you're like punching somebody in that video and showing like poor sportsmanship, right? But like other than that, like to kind of show the coach, the kind of your stroke and your technique and how you perform in a meet. I don't think it hurts. It definitely benefits, unless again you're like punching somebody or just acting out and not being a good person. Then don't show that to your coach, obviously, right? Because your coach is gonna look at that and be like, because no coach is gonna be like, oh wow, he punched his opponent. I really want that guy on my team. And so yeah, I think I would definitely send in some videos for them to look at and just kind of see. Definitely, yeah, good question. So yeah, so goal setting for swimmers. Okay, we want to talk about setting goal times, but also setting other goals, right? And these goals can be, physical goals, emotional goals, spiritual goals, mental goals, and these all play a part into what your goal may be, right? And so, let's see. For example, if you're, just let's just stick with that example of, okay, I want my 100 free to be sub 50, right? By the end of the season, that's a long term goal, right? So what can I do to make steps towards that long term goal, right? And so some smaller goals you can make in between that can be physical goals, right? If I have an injury, my goal is to get that injury to 100% by 4 months, 5 months, whatever the case may be. And so that physical goal is going to help you to get to that time, that end goal, that long term goal that you want. Now it can be other physical goals like, hey, I want to work on I want to work on my dives after practice. I want to work on my flip turns after practice. I want to make more progress post practices on the smaller things, underwaters, breakouts, stuff like that, right? It can also be goals like, hey, at the gym, I want to try to go to the gym 3 times a week for the next month or two, right? And so getting in the gym and working out can help with improve your strength and your power and your speed, and that can help towards your goals as well, right? And so physical goals can be a lot of different things, but ultimately you kind of want to use those goals to help get you to that long-term goal that you have, right? And some different mental goals can be like, okay, you get jitters, you get like super nervous before a race, and maybe that's why you don't race well, right? And so mental goals can be like, okay, hey, at this meet I want to try to focus on my lane and myself rather than focusing on different things, right? I want to find a way to set myself up for success and find a routine before my races so I'm not as nervous and I can't compete, right? And so those mental goals can be, something like visualization, something like meditation, finding a good routine for you, right? Being just like competing more obviously helps with that. But if you're not finding a good routine and helping yourself through those meets, then they're not going to be as productive, right? And so you always want to try to find a routine and help yourself to be successful when you're competing, because at times like there's a big meet and you might be nervous and there's a lot of people watching and then there's just a lot on the line, and mentally you just want to be able to compete in that sort of environment, and so the experience helps, but also you can set yourself up for success ahead of time. And visualization is a great way to do that. Sometimes we'll have our athletes close their eyes with a stopwatch and imagine their entire race. And so they'll hold the stopwatch and they'll imagine themselves starting the race, and they'll start the stopwatch. They'll go through their whole race with their underwaters, the breakouts, finding their stroke rate or stroke count into the wall, hitting that flip turn, doing their underwater kicks into the breakout, finishing into the wall, and wherever they stop, the stopwatch is kind of the time that they're kind of visualizing for that race. And so if you visualize your entire race and say you stop the stopwatch at 50, right? So then you're prepared for your race. And so visualization helps a lot with that. Um, Finding a routine helps with that too. The experience as well. And then you can always use meditation. Meditation is a great way to help calm yourself down, breathing exercises before races, just being in your zone, right? A lot of people just throw on headphones, listen to their own music. A lot of people need to talk to other people. I'm the kind of guy who like needs to talk to other people to kind of like get my mind off the race and just be like, hey, how's it going? And just just talk to people. So just find whatever works best for you, right? If you're around your parents before a race and they're like, you got to do this, and that's stressing you out, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to perform well, I got too many things to focus on, then maybe in the next race, don't be around your parents. Maybe be around your teammates, be around your friends, be around your coach, or literally anybody else who's going to calm you down and help you to focus on your race. Another thing is, before your races at practices, just having your race strategy down, right? A lot of elite athletes, the best swimmers in the world, know their stroke counts per lap, per 25 for short course or 50 for long course. They know their stroke count. They know how many underwater kicks they're doing. They know their flip turns and how long they're waiting off that wall before they start their kicks. They just know everything down to a T. So the better you can prepare for your race through knowing that stuff, the better you're going to perform at the meet, right? So, for example, in the 2008 Beijing Olympics, Michael Phelps dove in for the 200 fly, and his goggles filled up with water. But he just knew his stroke counts, and he just knew everything. He got that race down to a T, and he's just so prepared that he finished first, but B, he also broke the record. And to me, like, that's an amazing story, right? And that should help, especially those younger swimmers, like, understand your stroke count and constantly counting that during practices when you're going at race pace, when you're doing dives off the block and that sort of stuff. Because when you can figure that stuff out, it's gonna help you throughout your races, right? Caleb Jessel recently has been dissecting his races on YouTube and kind of talking about things he could work on and fix and do better. Again, and just trying to help out swimmers and understand that there's always something that you can improve on. And every video when he's dissecting it, he's always talking about stroke count. And he's like, oh, I should be 4 strokes on this one. I should be 5 strokes on this one. And he just did the 100 breaststroke recently. And if you guys haven't seen those videos, go check them out. Actually, just pause just pause the video right now.
You know the drill.
Yeah, we'll wait. Just go watch that.
We'll be right here.
Just Caleb Dressel dissecting videos on YouTube. We'll wait. Okay, welcome back. After watching that video, now you understand what I'm talking about with dissecting the videos and the show count. So, being mentally prepared is probably the biggest one, and the most underrated one as well. And so that one I would focus a lot on, especially as you go on throughout the years and progressing in your swimming career. You're going to get to bigger stages of swimming, and you just want to be as prepared for that as you can. And then going back to kind of like emotional goals, right? Like how, like what you can what's the word I'm looking for, like what you can I'm totally blanking, what you can control, right? So like if you just like swam a best time but you finished last, like instead of getting emotional about that, like seeing the bigger picture, right? So trying to control your emotions and control what you can control rather than what you can't control. And so we'll kind of talk about that, controlling what you can control, a little bit later. But just controlling your emotions as best as you can during races, and kind of if you swim a bad race, then trying to get away from that and just focus on other things. Like something that I do when I'm swimming a bad race is like I go cheer on my teammates, right? Because when I see them successful and I see them doing well, like that brings me joy and that gets my mind off the race and gets me focused on the next one. So emotional goals and stuff like that, like that.
Also, like everybody is bound to have a bad race.
Oh yeah,
Always. Like you're not
absolutely.
always gonna have the best race in your life every single time. So
I mean, like I've only had perfect races.
you okay?
But like, no, I've had plenty of bad races in my life. I've had races where I flip turn and I don't even hit the wall, and I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah, I've
Like,
done DQ'd like 70 times.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm kidding. I think another big thing is that like you should trust in your training before your race. Like instead of freaking out, trust in your training, trust in that process that you're going through, and like just trust that your coach has your back and he's been training you and making sure that you do well for this race.
Yeah, that's a big one. Too often I'll like train athletes and we'll be training and we'll get their race down to a T and then we get to a meet and then they're just like flailing their arms trying to like do whatever and I'm like, whoa, what just happened? Like what do you that is not what we were training for. I don't know what that was. So like
Right.
trust in your training. Train like you're going to race so that when you race like you're already used to it. And that part's huge, right? If you're practicing and you're just kind of like, oh, I'm just gonna do this and do that, and then you get to a race and you're just, oh, I'm just gonna turn and burn, go as fast as it's not gonna be productive. It's not gonna be a good meet. So definitely, yeah, like you said, just trust in your racing and trust that what your coach is doing for you is going to work. And we've talked about that in the past is buying into your training, right? When we're talking about USRPT, the best way to improve is buying into what your coach is telling you to do. And so if you can't do that, and then you just go to the meet and you just throw your arms around and do whatever, then obviously it's not going to be as productive. But ultimately, for goal setting, I feel like goal setting is probably one of the easiest things to do, right? Like, oh, I want to hit this time. Oh, I want to make it to nationals. I want to make a junior Olympic cut. I want to make an Olympic trials cut. I want to go to the Olympics. I want to swim for a college. I want to swim D1. Like I feel like goals are easy to set, right?
Right. It's easy to say, but
Oh yeah,
it's harder
absolutely.
to do.
It's the small goals, right? It's the goals that you're doing in between that that's gonna help you get to those bigger goals that you want. And so my best advice is again making those small goals for yourself and make them achievable, right? If you're gonna make say like a physical goal is like I want to go to the gym 7 days a week this week on top of your swimming training, on top of being a student and being in other extracurricular activities. Like, okay, like let's be realistic here, right? Like, if you think you can do 7, great. Let's start off with 2 days a week, right? And then after 2 weeks of doing that, let's go to 3 days a week, and then 4 days a week, and then like progressively move up to it, right? But make attainable goals because the worst thing you can do is say, this is my goal. I want to go to the gym 7 days a week. But then that week you go like once, like, and then you just feel like a failure, right? And you just put yourself down, and then you're digging yourself a deeper hole. And then that goal seems further and further and further away. And so you never ever want to do that to yourself. You want to make achievable goals that you can do, but even try to like make it even more achievable. Like give yourself 100% chance of achieving that goal, and you'll like be successful. You'll feel that success, right? Um, and this can be seen like for anything, right? As people win things and say like in basketball, right? Because of the playoffs, like if you win a game, like you ride that high, you ride that like win in that morale moving into the next game, and the chances of you winning that next game is better, right? Because you feel confident, you feel good that your team is where it should be, and you just feel good, and you just want to keep going into the next game and winning and winning. But if you lose a game, then it's like you feel less confident. You're like, oh, what's going on? You start questioning things. You go into the next game, you lose again, and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? You go into the next game, and you keep losing, right? And then you slowly lose that confidence. Um, so make achievable goals and feel that confidence build, and find that motivation to just keep moving forward. Yeah. Anything you got to add on to that?
Um, yeah, just reachable goals for me. Personally, I always, set the bar way too high, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna drop 4 seconds this year, and not really think about the in between. I always just focus on the end goal. and not really just, just like while I'm swimming. I always lose sight of my goal also.
Mhm.
Um, and one thing I've been, learning is that like when I'm setting a goal for swim, right, and I go to the pool and I bring outside stuff to the pool,
Yeah.
right, so I get distracted by why I'm there, and um, I'm trying to, learn and stick with, I'm going to the pool for this reason, and I'm gonna go for this reason, and I'm looking for my goal in the end. I don't want to bring outside problems or whatever,
Mhm.
and distract myself from my end goal, I guess. And I just never make small goals, which is my biggest problem. Just reachable small goals to get to my end goal.
Yeah, like I was saying, like making those goals, it's so easy. I want to swim sub 20 for a 50 free. I want to, blah, blah, blah. It's those small goals, those small achievable goals that are going to be harder that you need to be focusing on, right? And then, like Jordan was saying, like sometimes you just don't have a good day and you have a poor mindset going into practice. And that's another thing is like your mindset. Your mindset needs to be right and you need to be focused at practice in order to achieve your goals, right? Like I was saying, you can't just go to practice and just tune out. You can't just put a song on repeat in your head, stare at a black line, and just swim endless laps over and over and over again. It's not going to be productive towards your training. It's not going to be productive towards your competition and in competing in a meet. Like it's just not productive at all. There's a podcast with Flex Swim. Flex Swim used to do a podcast. They came out with this training gear called, I think it's the Flex Edge or something like that, where you strap it to your goggles and it tracks your swimming and stuff like that. Shout out Flex, love your videos. But they used to do a podcast. I think they did like 5 episodes in their podcast, and they talked to Maxime Rooney. And Maxime Rooney said something that's like really stuck with me for a while is that like when you're training in other sports, you're focusing on so many things. Like basketball, you're focusing on your footwork and your dribbling mechanics, your shooting form. You're like you constantly have to think about this stuff, otherwise you're not going to do well, right? But in swimming, we just kind of tune out, stare at a black line, and just swim over and over and over again. But it's not productive, right? And so we have to treat our sport like any other sport, and we have to really be dialed in. Excuse me, we have to be dialed in and focused on our training, right? And so we have to be like, okay, here if we're doing a set of 10 100s on 120, okay, well then let's figure out my underwater kicks, my stroke counts to each wall, my breakout. Like you got to be focusing on these things, and that's going to help make productive um, movements or pushes towards your goals, towards the things that you're working on, right? Because if you can be like, okay, in this set, I want to do 8 kicks off my first wall, 6 kicks off the rest of them, and you're working on your underwaters, or I want to be strong on my breakouts, or I want to figure out my stroke count on all of these, and you can tell, right? Like as you do the first and second 100, and you're like, okay, I'm 8 strokes on this one, right? And you get to number 5, and you're like, oh wow, I just went up to 10 or 11 strokes, then you know you're fatiguing right at 5 100s, right? So the next time you do that set and your 8 counts for every lap up to number 7, then you know you're making progress towards finding that endurance, finding that strength, and being able to progress and move forward in your speed and your stroke and everything. So be dialed in your racing. Focus on everything you're doing. Underwater kicks, your breakouts, your flip turns, your stroke count. Like you have to constantly be thinking about those things, right? If you're having a bad day and you know that you're going to go to practice and it's not going to be productive, honestly, don't go to practice. Like I say that to my athletes all the time. Like if you know it's not going to be a productive day and you just need to take that day to like go relax and have a mental day, then do that, right? Because that's going to help make productive movements towards your goals, right? Because if you just go to practice, again, it's about that confidence, right? If you go to practice and you're having a bad day, and then you have a coach yelling at you the whole time, like you're going slow, what's going on, and you feel less confident. You're digging yourself a hole and you feel down more, right? And so have those mental days and go home and just rest. Stay in bed, throw on Netflix and just watch, a funny show like Parks and Rec or something, and just like have a mental day to unwind and relax and focus on yourself. But don't take those mental days and then like go out and you know do go hang out with friends and whatever, right? Like something unproductive. Like make sure that mental day is productive towards making you, better, making you feel more confident and being able to go practice the next day. Don't just keep digging yourself a hole and doing things that you shouldn't be doing. So I know that's not what coaches want to hear, and I know that swimmers are going to hear that and be like, "What are you talking? Like, take a break from swimming? Like, that's so weird." But like, it's so important, right? Like, there there's there's a documentary, I guess you could call it, that came out on HBO. Michael Phelps talks about it. It's based around Michael Phelps, but other Olympics as well, or Olympians as well, and talking about like depression after the Olympics, and like Michael Phelps talks a lot about like your mental health, right? Michael Phelps went through a lot through training and went to rehab and just like a lot of mental awareness, and so like these athletes at the top of the highest level talk about it all the time, and so we have to like instill in these younger athletes that like it's okay to like feel the way you're feeling, but just make movements towards like feeling better and feeling more confident about yourself. Because too often, like these kids are these kids are going through a lot, truthfully, right? Like they're in high school, they're in new environments, they're swimmers already, right? Some people get bullied. Like I know that in high school, everybody was like, "Dude, you got massive shoulders. Like, how do you?" Again, that's not bullying, but like you're just like seen different from other people, right? With your tan lines for girls with tan lines and their hair maybe not looking the best because of chlorine and blah blah blah. And so like it's okay to like feel this way, and it's okay to have like bad days, and but just make sure you are taking care of yourself on those bad days and finding a routine to help yourself through whatever mental thing you're going through, but also don't use it as a crutch, right? Don't use it as an excuse to like don't be like, oh, I'm having a mental day, I don't want to go to practice, right? Like if you're honestly having a poor day and you know that practice isn't going to be productive, then yeah, I'd say don't go to it. It's not going to be productive for you. But if you're just like you want to skip practice, then that's a whole nother thing in and of itself. You may need to like rethink everything, because if you're not finding motivation and like going to practice and training, maybe you shouldn't do that sport. And actually, like not to sidetrack, but I I hear this a lot in swimming. It's like, do you even like enjoy swimming? Like, no, I don't enjoy it. Like people get burnt out and they hate swimming afterwards, and they're like, oh, I just do it because my parents want me to do it. Blah blah blah. Well, like at some point you really just got to take charge and be like, dude, I don't want to do this. And that may be a difficult discussion to have, but like if you're not finding enjoyment in it, then don't do it. Because the worst thing that I want is for people to end up hating swimming. That's like the worst thing that could ever happen to me as a coach, is if like I have an athlete who comes up and is like, hey, I hate swimming now because of like this. And I'm like, what? Like that would hurt me more than like, Jeremy, you're the worst coach ever. Truthfully, like just somebody hating swimming because of something that I was doing, like pushing them too hard or whatever the case may be. Like that would be the worst thing to me. And so find enjoyment in what you're doing. Like if you're enjoying it, then keep doing it. If you're not, then you definitely need to rethink everything and reflect and kind of decide if this is something you want to do moving forward. That was a huge side tangent. Sorry.
It's all good. It's all good.
What do we have next? Um, Something that I want to talk about is reflection, and this one it's not necessarily about goal setting, but it's something that like helps people for their next goals, right? Um, so as you make those goals, write them down somewhere, and there's a great guy. His name is I'm like subscribed to him on an email list. Um, and it's like he does this thing. It's like a swim log book. Um, oh man, I'm gonna be Olivier Leroy. Olivier, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Olivier Leroy. And he makes this. I'm subscribed to like his email list where he sends out like weekly these like motivational kind of emails to it just like talks about swimming. It's honestly just kind of like what we're doing here, talking about swimming. But he sends these emails out to people, and he's a great guy, and I love reading his stuff. Talks about like different swimming stuff, but he makes this book. It's a swim log book, and it tracks your swimming. Um, your swimming practices, which that in and of itself is a great thing to do too. But you can also write different goals and motivations in that book as well. And so that's like something that I would recommend is writing your goals down, right? Because at the end of the year, you want to be able to reflect on that. And you want to be able to see those goals and see, okay, what did I lay out for myself, and like where did I go wrong, right? Like where could I have improved, and where could I have maybe like where did I do well so that I can continue that through the next year. So eating this meal before every meet, that was a bad idea. Eating donuts and a whole pizza, that was a bad idea. I did not do well. So maybe I should try something different for like meals before meets, or okay, I set a goal for this, and that was definitely way too difficult. I did not achieve that, and that kind of set me back. Okay, how can I change that goal moving forward into this next year?
Right.
And so reflection is huge. And that's another underrated thing is like not too many people reflect, right? They just kind of, oh, I didn't make my goal. Okay, on to the next one. How can I set a goal this year? Okay, well, why didn't you achieve that goal, right? Like if you honestly set your goals and did everything and you still couldn't achieve it, well, that's a different story, right? But if you set your goals and you weren't achieving them and you had setbacks and then this veered off left and this veered off right and well actually this would be left and that'd be right, but whatever. And then so like how can you reflect and be like, okay, what did I do that didn't help make progressive goals towards like what I progressive like movement towards my goals, right? And so like finding that sort of stuff um, will help you move forward as you're setting goals for the next year and the year after that, and it'll help like improve you as a person. You know what I mean? Like if you could understand your weaknesses and your strengths and what worked for you, then as you like move forward year every year, then it's going to help make those goals easier for you to accomplish. You know what I mean? Right. And so like something for me, like my first year coaching, man, I thought I was crushing it. I was like, we got 25 athletes. We're going to, we're going to nationals. Everybody's doing well. And then like that after that year, I was like, I was like, man, I sucked. That was horrible. I was not a good coach, right? And so, like, I had to have that self reflection. I asked my athletes what they enjoyed and what they liked and what they wanted to see moving forward and things that we could work on. And so, it's taking, excuse me, sorry, it's taking that constructive criticism and moving forward and how to make your program better, how to make you a better coach. For a swimmer too, like how to make yourself a better swimmer, right? Oh man, I did not listen to my coach at all when he was saying this, and I need to trust in my coach a little bit more. Like just making those small changes that are going to help you towards not only being a better swimmer and achieving your goals, but really just a better person at the end of the day. And that's something, again, I talked about at the beginning is like these things that we're talking about is for swimming, yes, but also can be applied to just life in general. And so being good at reflecting and asking for constructive criticism, truthfully, like I wish this happened more, is if my swimmers came up to me and was like, hey, what can I work on better this year? Right? Like, you've had a year to coach me. Like, what did I do well? And, like, what can I work on more? And, like, what should I not do moving forward? Because, like, if I can have that open dialogue with an athlete, like, imagine what we could do, right? Like, imagine how more productive we can be and like just seeing that relationship build and like being able to work off of each other, right? Because there are times where I'm like, okay, I don't know if I should like get on this athlete to motivate him, right? Because some athletes are like, dude, I need you to scream and yell at me to motivate me, and some athletes are like, don't. If you scream at me, like I'm shutting down for the rest of practice, right?
Yeah.
And so like sometimes at practices, I'm literally screaming at one athlete, I'm like, go faster, move, move, move. And I'm like, yeah, what's going over here? And like some athletes are kind of thrown off by that. Like, go, what is happening, right? And so being able to have that open dialogue with athletes and being able to ask your coach, like being humble and setting your pride aside and saying, hey, like I want to be faster, and I want to reflect and ask you what I can be doing better, what I can improve, what I did well, and what I did not do well. And your coach works with you every day, right? So he's gonna be able to let you know, like, hey, you didn't show up to practice like half the year, and so that's something we have to work on. So like, what steps can we do to help you get to practice more often? Maybe do you have to switch to a different club team that's closer for you, where the drive is closer and easier for you, right? Or like, what do we have to do? And that's just a small example, but there's tons of other examples that you can just insert as needed. But being able to have that open dialogue with your coach is you gotta have a good relationship with your coach. Like you have to if you want to improve. It's not just trusting in that training, but being able to talk to them and say like, hey, this works for me, this doesn't work for me. What do I need to be doing to just be better? So that's the number one thing that I can recommend to any swimmer is communicating with your coach and having that open dialogue, and just being humble about that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I want to go back a little bit. You said, writing down your goals, and looking at them every day.
Yeah.
I think that's super important. My biggest jump in getting faster was my junior year, and I had this dinky little post-it wall thing, and I had all my goals. Had like all my goals for each race that I wanted to do, and I would look at that every morning, every time I go to bed, every time I'm in my room. I'd always just be looking at that those goals, and that would remind me, like in practices and in swim meets. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking about that.
No,
My junior
definitely,
year,
definitely.
that was my biggest jump.
And different things work for different people, right? Like some people have like dream boards, and like I've seen this, and I'm not trying to diss on it by any means, but it's literally a board where it's like things I want to work on, the Olympics, time, but blah blah blah. And they have it on this board, and it's like next to their bed, and they wake up and they look at it every day, and that's their dream. That's what they want to accomplish, and if that works for you, by all means, like do it, right? At the end of the day, like goal setting and staying motivated and staying focused and having the right mindset, it's not cookie cutter, right? I can say this works, this works, this works, but that works for me, right? You need to find what works for you. And what's going to keep you motivated, what's going to keep you focused, what's going to keep you on the right mindset, and stay motivated towards your goals. These are only things that like I have found to help me, to help other athletes, to help like Jordan, to help just what I've heard. And so these are just examples, but by no means is it something you have to do. And so yeah, at the end of the day, like you need to find what works for you. Some people they like Michael Andrews. Did I say Andrews? Michael Andrew. Is it Andrews? Michael Andrew. And
Michael Andrews.
is it with an S?
Michael Andrew.
Michael Andrew. So in his vlogs a long time ago, he used to have a piece of paper that he put above his desk, and it said 21.19. I believe is the number 21.19. And like that works for him. Is like seeing that event, the 50 free, and seeing that number. That's a long course, by the way, 21.19. And seeing that number and looking at that every day and being like, okay, that's what I want to hit. That's the time. That's the goal. But for some people, it's like if they do that, sometimes they just shut down, right? Because they'll have a bad meet and they'll come home and they'll see 21.19 and they're like, well, I was like a 25, so like I was way off, and they don't feel that motivation, and they again they feel less confident. They keep digging themselves a hole, and so again, you have to find what works for you, right? If putting bold letters in your room and being like make this time, and that helps you, you see that and you feel motivated, then do it, right? But if you see that and you just had a bad meet, didn't have a good practice, and you see that and you don't feel motivated, then take it down because that's not going to help you, right? So you need to.
Don't be afraid of trial and error.
Mhm.
Like trial and error is the biggest thing. That's how you're gonna get to what works for you.
Yeah, and that's something you have to have established at a young age.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you can do it at any age. Honestly, better now than never. But if you can have that down at a younger age, like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, by the time like you're in college, I mean, if you have a good routine and what works for you, then you're already ahead of the game, right? But if you get to college and you're trying to figure it out, now you're behind a little bit, right? If you're like, oh, I don't know what motivates me, I don't know what works for me, I don't know how to set goals, I don't know how to make progress towards these goals, then you're gonna be set behind others who are already good at setting goals, who already know their routine, who already know what works for them. Like what I tell a lot of my experienced athletes that I recruit who've been swimming for 10 whatever years, when we go to meets and they do their warm-ups, I don't necessarily give them a warm-up to do, right? Because these people have been swimming for 10 years. They should know what warm-ups work for them. Some people only swim like a 200 to a 500 and they're very well prepared for the meet, right? Some people need to swim like 2,000 yards before they're even feeling slightly prepared for the meet. And so I don't want to come in as a coach and ruin that routine. Now, if I see that they're doing a 2 to 500 warm up and they're doing horrible at the meet, then it's like, okay, now we gotta change something, right? Was it just a bad meet? Like, what happened? Are you injured? Was it the warm up? Like, what's going on, right? And so we have to make adjustments as we go. But for the most part, these people who've been swimming for 10 years, you should know what kind of warm up works for you. You should know how to prepare yourself for a meet. And so I try not to change that stuff that much. And most of the time, like I tell them, like this. You've been swimming this like for 50 free, for example. You've been swimming this event for the last decade of your life. Like this event. Like go out and just crush it. Like don't overthink it. It's a big meet. I understand. It's nationals, but like you've been swimming this event. You have over 100 repetitions of swimming this event. Like it. Just go out and do it. And so,
Sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, this is a little silly. But for me, I don't warm up a lot.
Yeah.
And I know that works for me. I hated it when my coaches in high school or in club were always like, "Oh, do this 2,400 yard warm up." I'm like, dude, I don't even swim 2,400 yards in practice. Okay, I'm gonna swim like a 400, and focus on what I need to focus on for my race.
Mhm.
Like if I know I'm swimming the 2 IM, which is one of my main events, I will focus on what I need to focus on for that race. I don't need to swim 50 laps of butterfly to warm up my butterfly. Like I've been swimming all my life. Um, I know what I need to do,
Yeah.
and that's different for everybody. Like my buddy in high school, Andrew Pocock, who's a distant swimmer, he warmed up like 3,000 yards before, and then swam another 3,000 yards right before his race,
Yeah.
and like that's what helps him and that's what warms him up. But for me, I'm different. It's different for everybody. For
Yeah.
sure.
Like I've been saying, it's not cookie cutter for everybody. It's the same thing isn't gonna work for everybody. Even if you're a like-minded person, it's still not gonna be the exact same thing for you. It may be similar, but it's not gonna be the exact same. So you really need to find like what works best for you, um, and help prepare you to stay motivated to set your goals or prepare yourself for a meet. Um, Another thing is surrounding yourself around like-minded people, right? And this one is huge, right? Because if you're surrounding yourself around losers, right, like people who are like, hey man, let's get practice today and go, go hang out, go to this abandoned warehouse, blah blah blah. Not that that's ever happened to me. I've never done that before. But like if you're surrounding, but if you're surrounding yourself around people who want to skip practice, who are putting you down, who are doing things they shouldn't be doing, who are getting in trouble constantly, then that's what you're going to be associated with, and then B, like that's what you're going to be around, right? And so you can't. I mean, you have to be like very um, like strong willed. Like what's the you have to have like very good internal like motivation to like be able to like motivate yourself being around that set of group, right? But if you're around a group of people who are like constantly motivating you, like the number one thing is Nothing else. Sorry, like one thing that I've realized is our roommate. We used to live with a guy named Matt, and he played volleyball at Arizona Christian University, and he took us out to play volleyball with him and his teammates one time, and we are not good at volleyball by
Right.
any means.
This is pre-COVID.
Yeah,
Also.
yeah, pre-COVID. And we're not good at volleyball by any means, and we're playing with people who like play volleyball at a collegiate level, and so they're like hitting these balls, and like anytime like we just make a simple contact with the ball, even if it goes straight out of bounds, like they are like they're like cheering us on. They're like wow, great hit. Like they're just so positive, right? And it made me want to like stay. It made me want to keep trying. It made me want to come back. And it made me want to like get, but like honestly, by the end of it, like we're getting pretty good. Like we found ourselves working on it outside of like doing it with them. Like we'd go to the gym and hit a volleyball around and like do different things. Like we just felt motivated. We felt like this positivity from these people who like even though I barely made contact with the ball and it went straight out of bounds, like they were just so positive. They were like, "Wow, you got it! Way to make contact! Like keep trying, keep going!" Like it was just so positive, and it honestly made me want to like stay there. So if you're a volleyball player, I mean, you know this. You guys are some of the most positive people. But if you're surrounding yourself around negative people and you finish a race and you go to your buddies and you're like, oh, man, I didn't swim well. And it's like, yeah, well, you suck. That's why. Well, then it's like, okay, maybe we need to figure out who we're surrounding ourselves by and surrounding ourselves by around like motivated people, around positive people and saying, oh man, I just had a bad race. And it's like, okay, well, how can we reflect? Like what went wrong? And how can we work on that at practice? Because if you're around those types of people who are motivated and like-minded, then you're going to improve as a person as well. Because when you see them successful, you're like, oh man, I want to be successful too. And so that's super important is surrounding yourself around great people, great positive people who are like-minded and going to lift you up.
Well, another thing I wanted to talk about for motivation is having people to look up to. I'm not talking about like Olympic athletes like Michael Phelps or well like you can have like a model like that.
Yeah.
Like I had Michael Phelps was my model growing up, but I'm talking about when I was younger or in high school, I just had people that I looked up to and like people that I wanted to you know beat or I wanted to learn from them. And that's what motivated me a lot. My freshman year of high school, I thought I was so good. I was like, dude, coming in here, I've swam all my life. I'm about to, be the best on the team, and I come in here, I'm like last. Like I don't, I was not a great swimmer. But then I just lost it. I was kind of my freshman year. I was kind of like, all right, whatever. Like I thought I was good. Like I'm not. But then I started hanging out with some of the older guys, the seniors. Because I was cool. Freshmen hanging out with seniors. No, but I was talking with the seniors or juniors, and they were talking to me about how they were younger, and they were like, oh, I was terrible. I was shorter than you. I was smaller than you, and you just got to work at it. And they're just motivating me, hyping me up, and that's what really wanted me to keep swimming, and that's what really brought me to do the second year of high school swim into my song. I worded that weirdly, but that's what brought me to keep on going.
Yeah. Shout out Daniel. What's his last name? Mijovicic. Jordan talks highly of you and how like you help motivate him. And
I don't think he knows about this either.
Yeah.
I was one day. This is my sophomore year. He's a senior. One day I was just sitting on the wall, being lazy. He like walks up. He's like, "Are you just gonna keep sitting there?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, dude, dude just broke me." And like after that day, I was just busting my butt. And I don't even know if he knows that, to be honest.
Shout out Daniel. Like it's people like that who are gonna help motivate you, right? And again, when you can have open dialogue and communicate with people and be like, hey, I want to get faster and I want to do better, then you can help that person, right? When you see them slacking off and it's like, hey, I know what your goals are, and this isn't helping towards your goals. Get your butt off the wall and let's keep swimming, And Daniel was great in helping Jordan with that, and honestly, like helped him through sophomore and junior year, improving all of that. So yeah, shout out Daniel. Surrounding yourself around like-minded people is huge. Having people motivating you is amazing. Other than your coach, like your teammates, right? Because you guys are in the thick of it, right? Like there's nobody who understands what you're going through more than your teammates, the people that you are doing it with, right? And so if you're like, man, I'm having a bad day, like, or I see this set and I'm like, oh man, I really just don't want to do it. And your teammates are like, bro, I'm with you, man. Like, I have been with you for swimming all these sets for the last 2 months, but like, we got to do it. We got to kill it. We got a meet coming up in 2 weeks. Like, we got to kill this, man. Because I know your goals and I know what you want to achieve at that meet. And we have to crush this meet or this practice. So let's get after it. And so, like, nobody understands it better. Not even your coach. Your coach isn't going to understand it. Nobody's going to understand it better than the teammates and the person right next to you swimming with you. So find great teammates, find like-minded people who are going to surround you and lift you up. But then at the same time, don't compare yourself with those other people. Don't see their successes and say, "Oh, I suck. Oh, I'm not gonna do well." It's on your own time, right? I've heard this so many times where like people are like, "Man, I was 14 years old and I was crushing that guy. Man, like that guy was so slow. I beat him every single meet, and now we're like 17 and he's just absolutely destroying me." And so it's on your own time. You're going to figure it out. Whether puberty is going to hit or maybe something's just going to click for you at practice and you're just going to get it, you're going to understand it, and it's just going to go off for you. And so maybe you're like injured and taking care of that injury is going to help you to improve and get to 100% for training and stuff like that. So it's on your own time. Don't compare yourself to other people, right? I've been saying this the whole video. The more confident you are, the more motivated you are, the more productive you're going to be at practice, the better you're going to hit your goals, right? But the more you compare yourself to other people and you put yourself down and you feel less confident and you keep digging yourself a hole and you get down on yourself, then you're not going to be productive. You're not going to get those goals. So it's whatever's going to make you feel the most confident that's going to help you stay motivated and hit those goals and achieve those goals that you want. And then the last thing that, unless you have something.
Well, I was gonna say, but also have those people motivate you.
Yeah.
They're crushing it, and you're not doing that well. Have that motivate you. I had a lot of people that I swam with when I was younger, and they started to do a lot better their junior, senior year, or whatever. And I'm like, dude, they're killing it right now, and I'm not really doing that well. Like, use that to motivate yourself too, and just be the best you can be though.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And like being able being able to like be a good teammate and use that motivation and not compare yourself to that person is all like a fine line, right? Because like you don't want to compare yourself to that person and put yourself down, but you also like want to encourage them. You want to be a good teammate. Be like, hey man, I'm so proud of you. Congrats. Like, man, you drop in time, you're killing it, you're crushing it. But you don't want to compare yourself to them. Be like, oh, I'm not at the same place as them. I'm not doing as well. Blah blah blah. But you also want to like use that as motivation. Be like, okay, but I want to, right? I want to be there and I want to kill it and I want to be where they're at. So again, if you have people who are successful, you're going to be successful because you're going to see their success and you're going to want to be like, oh, I want to be right there with them. Like I want to be successful with them. And so that's with life too, right? Like if you're surrounded by people who don't work and just stay at home at their mom's house and you're looking at them and you're like, man, they don't have to pay rent. They get free food. Like you're gonna be like, man, I don't know. Staying at home might be the move, right? But like that doesn't put you in a spot to be successful, right? You need to live on your own. You need to grow up, and you need to be able to pay your bills and live by yourself and be independent. Find a job, struggle a little bit, find your career, and be able to do all of that stuff. And when you see other people who are doing that with you and they're like successful, and you're like, man, how are they doing that? How are they like completely independent, like financially covering all of their things by themselves? Like you see their success and you're like, man, I want to be able to do that, right? And so if you surround yourself around successful people, then you're going to be successful as well. Yeah, good, good point. Um, the last thing that I want to talk about is keep learning. You need to stay humble. You need to put your pride aside and keep learning. Keep learning from your coaches. Keep learning from your teammates. Keep learning from your parents. Keep learning from your teachers. Keep learning from children. Literally anybody, you need to keep learning, right? And again, I talked about that video with Caleb Dressel dissecting his events and telling people what he could work on and doing all of that. Listen, Caleb Dressel holds the 100 fly world record long course yards and multiple Olympic
long course meters.
or yeah, sorry, long course meters and multiple Olympic gold medals. He's one of the fastest swimmers in the world currently, if not the fastest. And that guy's still learning. The guy's still able to pull out almost a 20-minute video of him just dissecting his events and pulling it apart and being like, man, I sucked in this event and I could have worked on so many different things. So stay humble, like keep learning from, again, anybody. Read books, watch documentaries, listen to your coach, have that open dialogue and communicate and talk with your coach, talk with your teammates, and learn from them and what works for them. Learn from your teachers, like learn from your parents, like anybody you can pull life lessons from it and just take that in and absorb. Like be a sponge and just constantly absorb things and just keep learning. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think this is really important, mostly because he has this, bolded in big letters on his paper right there. Everything else, is regularly written except for the keep learning. That's in big letters right there. So I think that's very important.
Yeah, that's it. Honestly, I've been saying this is the number one advice.
Yeah, I've noticed. You've been saying that a lot.
But this is really good advice. Keep learning. You don't know everything. If you're at the highest of the highest level, you still don't know it all. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, hey, I know how to motivate you. I know how to set goals, and listen to me. I don't. I mean, I'm probably gonna listen to this like a year from now and be like, what was I saying? but honestly, like keep learning. Keep staying humble and just be a sponge and absorb things and try different things. Like honestly, like there's so many things that you can do that's going to translate over into swimming or translate over into life goals. Like the reason why people say that athletes are going to be better or supposed to be right better students is because these athletes are taking what they're doing in sports and applying it to life, right? Goal setting, staying motivated, understanding how to like um, get out of something that's I don't want to say like what's the word I want to say like adversity, how to get out of adversity. Great. How to leadership, like these are things that they can apply to being a student, right? Struggling with a class, adversity, how can I get through that? Goal setting in your classes and stuff like this. So it's just be a sponge and apply different things and experiment and just try new things and pick up new hobbies because it can be it can translate over into your swimming, into goal setting. It can translate over into life and other things that you're doing as a person. So just keep learning, honestly. And then and then I know I said this was the last thing, but I also want to mention like your spiritual well being. We're both men of Christ. We're born again Christians, and Christ is a huge part of our lives. And finding that greater that what's the word I'm looking for? Not the greater good, but like a bigger picture, like something that you're to um, looking to like Michael Andrews again talks about this a lot. Is like, why do I swim? Right? Like a lot of people say for the glory, for the money, for the blah blah blah. But like at the end of the day, all of that can be taken away from you, right? But as a Christian, like God can't be taken away from you. Christ can't be taken away from you. So who are you swimming for? And for us, that's Christ, and for you, it might be something else. But find that bigger thing that you're competing for, because at the end of the day, you're gonna have a bad race. But win or lose, we're always gonna praise God. So win or lose, like what are you gonna be praising? Like what are you going to um, like what's going to keep you motivated at the end of the day. And so if you're not a man of Christ, like find a mantra that's going to stick with you and that you can like say over and over and over again in your head, something that you can um, take with you to like anything. And that mantra can be as simple as like um, have fun, right? Like you're sitting there before the final heat. It's like have fun, man. Just go out there, have fun. Like what is your mantra, right? You swam the biggest race of your life and you finish second. And what are you going to be saying to yourself? Just have fun, right? Enjoy that moment, all those people watching you, being in that environment, the people that you competed with, like have fun, like whatever mantra works for you. Figure that out because you're gonna have lows, and if you're gonna take away anything from this video, I mean, there's a lot to take away, but if you're gonna take away anything, it's you're gonna have lows, and you are going to struggle, and you are going to have times where you aren't winning, and you aren't improving, and you may be struggling with an injury or whatever the case may be. You're gonna have lows. All right, it's how you are gonna set yourself up with your mindset, with this mantra, with the bigger picture, with what you're competing for, with all of this stuff to keep you motivated. That's going to help get you out of that and get you back on track to be competing, to be at the level that you want to be. And that's truthfully, that's life. That's all it is, right? It's having those lows, and then how am I going to bounce back from it, right? Because you're going to have highs and you're going to ride it too, but you're going to have a ton of lows. And the best athletes know how to get out of that, know how to improve from that, know how to reflect from that, know how to keep learning, and know how to like have a mantra. And they're around good set of people that are going to help support them through it. And so like that's the biggest thing is you're gonna have lows, and these are all the things that are gonna prepare you to help get out of that, and improve and just become a better person, and become a better athlete. Yeah, kind of
Well
got
said.
kind of got real there at the end, but
It's all good. It's all good.
that's
Yeah.
everything I have. Yeah,
That's all I got.
sweet. Well, thanks Murph Dog for suggesting that. Honestly, that was a really fun topic to talk about. If you guys, honestly, if you guys have anything else that you guys would love to hear from us, please put it down in the comments. We'd love to talk about it. We do have some videos coming up that we do want to talk about with the ISL that's coming out.
Sure.
I'm so ready to start talking about that. Olympics has been pushed back a year, but I do want to come out with a video talking about the Olympics and Olympic trials and stuff like that. Just who to look for in the Olympics, right? Like not a lot of people are talked about unless it's 4 years later. So who to look for at the Olympics and who's on the come up and all of that. Duncan Scott is somebody I want to talk about, but yeah. So look out for new videos again every Wednesday. We post them. If you like what we're talking about, feel free to like. Please subscribe. Please share it with your friends and your swimmer friends and whoever. I sound like Cody Miller. So with your swimmer friends, it helps me a lot. But no, for real, yeah. So share with your swimmer friends or literally anybody who can get something from this. Another athlete, another person who needs help with motivation and struggling with goals and setting goals and stuff like that. But yeah, please share it, like, follow, and we'll see you in the next one.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys.